Hey, what's going on? I've been putting together a long flowing breakdown of the expedition update, the one they released as 1.7, and this thing is absolutely packed with changes that reshape the feeling of moving through the zone. Instead of just rattling off patch notes, I want to walk you through how it actually feels to play after the update, why the changes matter, and what kinds of moments you'll start noticing as soon as you load back into your save. This isn't just a tuning patch, it touches the core simulation, enemy behavior, stealth, stamina, gear, anomalies, weather, and a huge stack of refinements behind the scenes. Think of it as the zone getting a personality upgrade rather than just a tune-up. And the fun part is how all these little pieces connect, creating wildly different encounters and rhythms compared to earlier versions. So the first big thing you'll notice is the overhaul to how territory works. Previously, if you cleared out a location, it pretty much stayed that way unless a quest specifically told it to change. Now, the zone treats territory like a living battlefield. Points of interest, camps, and checkpoints can change hands. Factions can push outward or lose ground. Mutant groups can move into spots where humans used to be, and NPC squads can wander into fights completely independent of your actions. You might travel through an area you swept earlier and find a different crew guarding it, or even a pack of mutants prowling around the ruins. This gives the zone that unstable, unpredictable character the series is known for. You don't just memorize a route, you adapt to whatever is happening in that moment. Every trip becomes a little expedition of its own, not a rerun of what you already cleared. That also means exploration rewards caution. You can't rely on your memory of a safe spot for long. Maybe a patrol moved in, maybe an enemy squad got wiped by mutants, or maybe two factions have decided that this little cluster of buildings is their new battleground. One of the coolest things you'll see is stumbling into active firefights between groups who don't care that you exist. They're fighting for their own reasons. You can sneak around them, ambush weakened survivors, or even jump in and tilt the outcome. It's not a scripted event, it's just the simulation doing its thing. That's the magic of this update. It makes the zone react to itself, not just to you. And because enemies no longer spawn in weird, illogical spots or behave neutrally when they obviously shouldn't, the whole thing feels more grounded and less glitchy. Another massive improvement is stealth, especially when you're hiding in tall grass and foliage. This used to be one of those areas where you'd crouch in a bush, hope for the best, and still get spotted instantly because the cover didn't really matter. Now foliage actually breaks up line of sight. If you're crouched in dense grass or tucked into a clump of bushes, enemies take longer to detect you, and their accuracy tanks when they fire through vegetation. That means you can finally play like a proper stalker, approach through undergrowth, watch patrols, time your movement, and line up quiet shots without being magically detected. You can sneak through swamps the way you always imagined, slow, methodical, listening for footsteps and voices while your silhouette stays hidden in the reeds. It adds tension because when stealth works, you start trying bolder maneuvers, longer flanking routes, and riskier infiltrations. It feels like the wild parts of the map got their teeth back. Enemy behavior also took a huge leap. You'll notice enemies making smarter decisions with their positioning and distance. Shotgun wielders try to close the gap, riflemen stay mid-range, snipers pull back or choose better angles instead of just standing still. When a fight turns bad for them, they might actually fall back, regroup, or break contact completely. And if you try to brute force your way in, don't be surprised if someone flanks you while you're dealing with their buddies. One of the best improvements is consistency. Enemies don't get stuck as often, don't idle awkwardly in the open, and don't randomly freeze during firefights. The result is smoother pacing. Every fight feels like it has a small tactical story to it, rather than a predictable exchange of gunfire. Mutants also behave more reasonably. Some overpowered creatures have their special attacks tuned so they're not spamming abilities without pause. Others have better navigation, making them more threatening in tight spaces, but less glitchy in awkward terrain. It keeps encounters dangerous without crossing into cheap territory. When you see a mutant pack charging in the distance, you don't assume the game will bug out. You assume danger. One of the boldest additions is the ultra-hard survival difficulty. This isn't a mode you casually switch into. You have to pick it when starting a new game. It leans into unforgiving survival, higher lethality, tougher enemies, fewer resources, and much less room for sloppy play. If you take a bullet you weren't supposed to take, you'll feel it. Because you can't toggle it later, it's meant as a deliberate challenge for seasoned players who want the zone to feel oppressive and deadly, almost like the series' earliest roots. This is the kind of mode where you think twice before entering a firefight, and sometimes the smart play is to avoid an encounter entirely rather than win it. Movement and stamina got reshaped too. Sprinting isn't something you can spam endlessly anymore. You have to think about timing your bursts. If you try to sprint repeatedly without giving yourself a breather, you'll run dry at the worst moment. This shifts how you approach engagements. You might flank slower, plan routes more carefully, or choose to remain hidden instead of sprinting to safety. It also makes escapes feel tense. If you're low on stamina and a mutant is chasing you, you're not just fighting the creature, you're fighting yourself to keep moving. On top of that, some inventory items have been rebalanced. Certain attachments matter more, detectors don't take up as awkward space, and a few visuals and stats were tweaked to make gear progression feel smoother. The update also adds new anomalies, which means some areas you thought you understood now have new dangers sitting right in the middle of your path. These additions keep exploration unpredictable. Maybe a route you use regularly now has a deadly anomaly, forcing you to take a longer, more dangerous detour. There's also a new rainy weather scenario that, while subtle, plays a big role in atmosphere. Light rain changes visibility, alters how distant sounds carry, and creates moments where the zone feels quieter, colder, and more ominous. It's not dramatic, but it adds texture to your travels. On the performance side, the developers went after a ton of issues that players had been reporting for months. They optimized foliage meshes, adjusted building occlusion, polished lighting behavior, and refined cloth simulation so characters don't freak out visually. Streaming issues, which used to cause little micro hitches or stutters, got targeted too, so the game feels smoother in dense or visually complex areas. They also patched a long list of crashes, quest blockers, and weird little bugs that most players eventually bump into. It's one of those updates where even if you don't notice every fix, you feel the improvement over time because fewer things interrupt your gameplay. Controllers got some love too. Aim behavior feels more responsive, and the game offers an immersive mode option for players who want their interface to be less cluttered. Those improvements matter a lot if you're playing on a console or with a controller setup, because previously aiming could feel a bit stiff or inconsistent. What's fun about this update is how all the changes layer into each other. Let's imagine a scenario that could happen purely because of the updated systems. Picture yourself heading toward an abandoned depot you cleared earlier. You approach from a hill and notice movement that wasn't there last time. Maybe a new faction patrol walking a perimeter. Maybe shadows from mutants crawling around the sides of the buildings. You crouch into the grass, practically invisible thanks to the new foliage system. A distant firefight breaks out between that patrol and a rival squad you didn't realize was nearby. The mutants hear the gunfire and rush in, creating a three-way mess. You watch all of this unfold from your hidden spot, trying to decide if you should interfere, wait it out, or slip inside during the chaos. None of this is scripted. It's just the A-Life system reacting, spawning opportunities, creating risks, and telling its own story. Add the new stamina behavior, and suddenly sprinting into the depot while everyone's distracted becomes a calculated risk, not a shortcut. Add the new anomaly placements, and maybe inside that depot there's now a hazard sitting right where you want to loot. Add the new weather, and maybe a light drizzle rolls in, reducing visibility just enough for one lone survivor to sneak up behind you if you're not listening carefully. These moments feel organic, and the update amplifies them constantly. Another thing worth mentioning is how the improved AI retreat behavior changes the flow of fights. When enemies pull back, they aren't just giving up. They might be regrouping, repositioning, or baiting you into a bad angle. Combine that with smarter flanking and better weapon distance judgment, and fights start feeling less like straightforward engagements and more like little tactical puzzles. You have to reposition more, use cover better, and think about where enemies might move next, rather than just where they are now. The update's long list of quest and stability fixes also matters because it clears up a lot of frustration for returning players.